Video game sequels always have the potential to be better than what came before. Plenty of game series hit their stride as early as the second installment. 3 may be the magic number, but this video looks at the greatest, most influential games with the number 2 in the title, be it the Western number, the Roman numeral, or just outright spelt, foreign language or otherwise. These are Snooty Nerds' Top 10 Video Game Number 2s. Licensed games have a stigma attached to them, thanks to the shenanigans of the League of Juvenile Ne'er-do-wells. But one way to guarantee your license being in good hands is to let Traveller's Tales turn it into Lego, as Warner Bros. Did with Batman. Puzzles, platforming, comedy, and co-op multiplayer. You always knew what you were getting with a Lego adaptation. Then came Lego Batman 2, which, in addition to letting you play as the rest of the Justice League, introduced 2 innovations to the Lego series. The first of these being full-on voice acting, with Clancy Brown reprising his role as Lex Luthor. The other innovation is open-world gameplay, driving around the streets of Gotham in the Batmobile, running around as the Flash, or flying faster than a speeding bullet as Superman. Yes, a video game where you play as Superman, and it's actually good! It's because of this game that the LEGO Batman series continued, with more games following, and even a full-length feature film. And now for Snooty Nerds, nerdy-arse voice actor trivia. LEGO Superman is voiced by Travis Willingham. He's married to Laura Bailey, who voices Wonder Woman in this game, among several other characters like Poison Ivy. It's also worth noting that Travis Willingham also voiced Knuckles the Echidna in the Sonic the Hedgehog series, and there's an actual crossover between Sonic the Hedgehog and the Justice League, with Knuckles as Superman. Art imitating life. When you say the word RPG, what comes to mind is usually Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, but one that often gets overshadowed is Taito's Lufia series. Though it didn't help that their first game was rather lackluster compared to everything else on the market. Now, the storytelling was excellent. Never before have I seen an opening that was just as emotional and grandiose as the ending. It's just the slow-paced, bare-bones gameplay that stopped it from being successful. Also not helping matters was not being able to choose specific targets with your attacks and spells, including the healing spells. Thankfully, Taito was able to fix all of these issues when they released Lufia 2. They expanded the prologue from the first Lufia into its own full-fledged game. Maxim now moves around the screen at super speed. There are no longer random encounters in the dungeons, instead they opted for avoidable on-screen encounters, so that you can now focus on solving puzzles like in a Zelda or a Golden Sun game. The story is great too. Very few RPGs see the main character getting married and starting a family around the halfway point. Taito took one of the most average, underwhelming games on the Super Nintendo and used its formula to develop one of the system's best RPGs that wasn't from Square or Enix. While there were other Lufia games that came along later, Lufia 2 remains the pinnacle of the series. Now, how long do we have to wait until they port it to the Switch Online program? Long-time viewers may remember my smarmy review of Shining Soul for the Game Boy Advance. I firmly believe this game to be the exact moment when Sega's legendary Shining series jumped the shark. It was a boring and frustrating Diablo clone. Now, I originally wanted to put Shining Soul 2 on this list because of how day and night the improvements are. Taking the format of the most frustrating title on Game Boy Advance and making something that was actually fun. But then I realised, neither of those games would have been made unless this game had been made. We wouldn't have Diablo clones if we didn't have Diablo. While the first game was fun, Diablo 2 revolutionized Western action RPGs. Randomized loot pinatas, branching skill trees, customizable character growth, in addition to online multiplayer. I still have my copy that I got second-hand at a church sale. I have this friend who's a stand-up comic, and he just loved the irony that I went to a church sale and bought a game called Diablo. This installment was the one that inspired all the similar action RPGs that cropped up later. When people say Diablo clone, it's usually Diablo 2 that they're talking about. Sort of like when people talk about Mad Max, they're actually thinking of Mad Max 2. Seriously, does anyone even remember the first film in that series? Nintendo was something of a tyrant towards their third-party developers. If you wanted a game on Nintendo, you weren't allowed to port it to any other system. Because of this, Capcom wasn't allowed to port Final Fight to the Mega Drive. Sega decided to make the best of a bad situation and create their own equivalent in the form of Streets of Rage. Naturally, it was no match for Final Fight, although it did have a brilliant soundtrack, so brilliant in fact that they kept the intro music for Streets of Rage 2, which again wasn't as good as Final Fight. It was better! Better graphics, smoother gameplay, better pacing, 4 characters with distinct fighting styles, as opposed to the original, which had 3 characters with the same fighting style and slightly different stats. Heck, at the time of writing the script, there's even a feature film in the works. To this day, Streets of Rage 2 is considered one of the best games on Sega Mega Drive, one of the best beat-em-ups of all time, and the best game in the series. At least until Streets of Rage 4, but that didn't come along until decades later. But even then, 2 still holds up today. It certainly doesn't hurt that Blaze Fielding shows off a lot more skin in this one. Pokemon is constantly evolving, much like the eponymous creatures themselves. What started as a rushed RPG by a brand new developer became a Phoenix Down that gave the Game Boy a second lease of life, and continues to make money even to this very day. And when it comes to Pokemon and the number 2, what comes to mind is the almighty Mewtwo. What? Did you think I was only talking about games themselves? Mewtwo was not only the most powerful Pokemon in the game, but one of the most memorable characters in the entire franchise. Right from Pokemon the first movie, he's a character that made his presence felt, having the highest base stat total of almost any Pokemon in the series, along with one of the most powerful and diverse move pools. He's the creature you want in your team when you're chasing out the Elite Four. Being one of the first Pokemon to appear in the Super Smash Bros. Series alongside Pikachu, this thing definitely has clout. No wonder he's got all the girls fighting over him.
Mewtwo! You caught it already?
A Street Fighter game where the World Warriors go toe-to-toe with the X-Men was a novel idea back in the 1990s. It was a crossover we didn't know we needed in our lives until it happened, thus giving birth to the Marvel vs. Capcom series, accumulating one of the biggest contenders for the title of greatest fighting game of all time, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. The fighting was as smooth as a Spanish latte with coconut oil. What, you've never had coffee with coconut oil? You need to try it, it's quite nice. There's 3-on-3 matches and a character roster 55 strong, giving limitless team combinations, like Mega Man, Spider-Man, and his sort of girlfriend Morrigan, or completely broken god tier teams like Magneto, Storm and Psylocke, or Cable, Thanos and Sentinel. My only criticism is that woman who relentlessly offers you a lift on the character select screen.
I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride. I wanna take you for a ride.
Okay, point made! God, she's like your mum insisting on driving you to school. Mega Man is to the run-and-gun platformer as Stevenson's Rocket is to the Steam engine. It probably wasn't the first video game where you run, jump and shoot, but there's no denying the impact it had. The first one was a fun, if somewhat frustrating little gem for the NES, but Mega Man 2 made the brand what it is today. It got rid of the crappy parts that didn't work in the first game and polished up on what did work, and because the sequel was so good, it became Capcom's big moneymaker on the NES, with one sequel after another, and extending the series to Super Nintendo, PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and even new installments on current hardware, not to mention all the spin-offs and side series, and it all started with Mega Man 2. This was the installment that introduced the iconic Mega Man theme tune we are listening to right now, not to mention more bosses with even better Robot Master weapons. Even decades later with dozens of new games, the Metal Blade is still considered the best weapon in the entire franchise. It's a quintessential Blue Bomber experience. From the Blue Bomber to the Blue Blur, Sonic the Hedgehog was the first-party mascot that made Sega stand out from the crowd. With an emphasis on attitude making him a big hit in the Western market, he was the hero Sega needed to fight Nintendo's Mario on equal footing. His debut on Sega Mega Drive was a good game that showed off just what the system was capable of in terms of graphics, music and processing speed, but everything Sonic 1 did well, Sonic 2 did better. Better level design with more emphasis on speed and less of a slow-paced platforming segments, not to mention the introduction of Tails, the best video game sidekick in history. Take that, Brock from Pokemon! And did I mention what happens when you get all of the Chaos Emeralds? In the first game, it was a challenging side mission and your reward was just getting a slightly different ending. Here, you get an actual reward that changes up the gameplay. Supersonic! Invincibility and double speed to just blast through all the remaining levels and destroy everything in your path. Sonic has appeared in numerous cartoons, comics, and even live-action films, all of which, at least in the 90s, were based on Sonic 2 or later. Seriously, Tails wasn't in Sonic Underground and is considered the worst received outlet in the franchise. Coincidence? I very much doubt it. It's the year 2004. Spider-Man 2 came out of the cinema and was absolutely fantastic. Probably my favourite film that came out that year. In fact, some people still consider Spider-Man 2 to be the greatest superhero movie of all time. At least the best Marvel movie. I was so excited for the inevitable release of Spider-Man 3. Heck, even the home release of Spider-Man 2 was a wait. But until then, we have a video game for GameCube, PS2 and Xbox, and it was an experience not to be missed. You might actually remember this one from my video of the top 10 Spider-Man games. It's basically Grand Theft Auto with Spider-Man, with the best, most perfect web-swinging mechanics of any video game ever to get Marvel seal of approval. With Tobey Maguire, Alfred Molina and Kirsten Dunst reprising their roles from the film to provide voice work. And while they couldn't get James Franco on board to voice Harry Osborn, his voice actor Josh Keaton has done pretty well for himself. A video game adaptation that's even better than the film it's based on, something that's not an amazing fantasy. And now for a recap before we get to the toest two of them all. Number 10, Lego Batman 2. Number 9, Lufia 2. Number 8, Diablo 2. Number 7, Streets of Rage 2. Number 6, Mewtwo. Number 5, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Number 4, Mega Man 2. Number 3, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Number 2, Spider-Man 2. And number 1... Street Fighter 2 is our third entry from Capcom, showing their capacity to learn from both their successes and their failures. Just as Mega Man 2 did for the run-and-gun side-scroller, Street Fighter 2 did for the tournament fighter. The first Street Fighter was limited, broken, slow-paced, unresponsive, and practically unplayable by today's standards. Then came Street Fighter 2 that fixed everything. Smooth gameplay, responsive controls, a selection of playable characters. This game was even accredited as the one that invented combos. And Capcom wasn't done yet. While the base Street Fighter 2 was incredible, they kept adding more and more to it with further revisions. Playable boss characters, new special moves, 4 new characters, and even super meters were later added to the mix. Though nowadays all this stuff will probably just be paid DLC for a single installment. Street Fighter 2 is the fighting game all fighters strive to be, and the greatest video game sequel ever made. Capcom took a broken, unplayable mess of a game and created a sequel that made fighting games what they are today. And that's why it's the greatest video game ever made to have the number 2 in the title. And that's my list of the toest twos in video games. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. Cheerio!